the limbo of life and death. Like, he almost became a ghost himself.
Yeah, that's true. Like, first of all, he knows what it's like to, like, almost be a ghost.
Yeah, not want to let go.
But also, he knows that Molly is a ghost, and she's been a ghost for 15 years, and that could potentially make her dangerous.
Yeah, that too. Molly's looking at the scrapbook again, and Sam and Dean are, like, whispering to each other, and Sam's starting to, like, want to tell the truth, and Dean's like, we can't, like, we have a plan, and, like, we don't have time to come up with another plan, like, we need her. But Molly overhears, and she's really upset that they know something about David's whereabouts, but before they need to start confessing to Molly what's up, House of the Rising Sun starts playing again on the radio.
Song choice.
Greeley is back, and he is mad. He wants Molly, and he smashes through a window and grabs her, and I'm like, was the glass necessary? Like, did Molly break it by accident, like, with her ignorance that she's a ghost? Because, like, Greeley is clearly aware he's a ghost. Like, he doesn't need to smash glass to grab Molly, and the glass doesn't need to smash when he pulls Molly through it, because she's also a ghost. I think Molly just, like, broke the glass because she was expecting the glass to break, to be honest.
Greeley has a sense of drama, and I appreciate that about him.
Sam notices a picture from right before the accident, February 6, 1992, which means that we have a date for this episode of approximately February 20th-ish, 2007. Later in the episode, there's an actual date given. But I was like, ooh, clues as to when this is. Sam notices that there's no tree in the photo, and remembers that some people use trees to mark graves, and that there was a tree there when they were at the cabin earlier.
Which is honestly such a great tradition, and I love it, and I want it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great thing.
Well, and it's practical because it's kind of gross, but trees would use a dead body as fertilizer.
Yeah, it's like very like back to nature.
Yeah, and like you're taking yourself out of the world because you're dead, but you're putting another life back into it with the tree.
Pretty cool.
Greeley is then torturing Molly, and he says hurting her is the only thing that he had left. We don't know what kept Greeley here, because his wife wasn't dead when he died and would have become a ghost. I assume it's anger/revenge that he wants, but he can't ever really get it because Molly's also dead. Dean goes in to save Molly, even though she's a ghost, and doesn't actually, need saving.
We just said that Greeley can't ever move on because he wants revenge and he's angry, but he can't really get that.
Yeah, like Molly, he can't kill Molly because she's dead.
Yeah, and Molly is looking for David, but she can't leave here, so she'll never find him.
Yeah.
And so that's why they've been locked in this cycle for so long.
Yep, just replaying that tragedy, as Sam said.
Every single year.
Well, also, like, her mind is reset every time, so she can't ever get to the point where she can be at peace with what she is and discover what she is.
Yeah, exactly. I just laughed, like, that Dean, like, they're like, go save Molly, and it's like, Molly is dead. She doesn't actually, like, she's getting tortured, and that's horrible, but, like, she'd actually be fine if you don't. And you would be safer if you don't.
She'd be mad at you if you don't.
Yeah, but, like, Sam starts digging the grave. Dean comes in to save Molly. He makes a very funny joke. Molly's like, thank God, and he says, call me Dean, in response, excellent work, boo.
I wrote that down. I loved it.
Sam dug the world's fastest grave. They've dug 2 graves tonight and had time in between. Like, they are digging at lightning speed. It takes so long to dig a grave by hand. This is insane, but...
I think in one of our recent episodes that we recorded, we mentioned holes, like the book and the movie, and like how those boys would give anything to be like the Winchesters.
The Winchesters should really have been like hired to like teach the grave digging.
Go to the holes in grave digging 101.
Alright, first thing you need is an inhuman strength and protagonist plot armor.
Be really tall and really strong, yeah?
Second, be a secret bulldozer.
The physique of a great god can't hurt.
Sam is salting and burning. He uses a match and it lights on the first try, which might be a record, and also a bit of a slight against Dean's stupid Zippos that never light on the first try. He's always fumbling with the lighter, and Sam just like has matches. And Dean also always throws his whole lighter into the grave, and like those things gotta be like racking up like expenses. Like why?
Money
like,
is nothing to them.
And also like we know that they take the matchbooks from like half the motels they go to. Like they always have matches. Just use them. They get back to the car, but Molly won't go anywhere until they tell her what happened to her husband. And Molly thinks that Greeley killed her husband, but Sam tells her David's alive and they will take her to him. And this is horrible. I hate this so much. Use your words, Sam Winchester. I think like not like being like, okay, we'll tell you, and then not saying anything and just like letting her find out about this is awful. They pull up to David's house where he lives with his new wife, who looks, in my opinion, just a little bit too much like Molly. But that's just my opinion.
You got a type.
Where they just tell her to get out of the car and see her for herself. A much older David and his wife are getting up, having their morning coffee while it's still dark. They just ambush her with this revelation on David's front lawn. Like, what the hell?
I think it was important for her to see this.
But, like, some warning.
Well, yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, I think she wouldn't have really been able to move on if she didn't see this and know for herself that he was okay and he was alive and that she wasn't alive. But I do think they should have, like, prepared her a little more first.
Like, they're like, we'll take you to David. And they take her here. David's 15 years older and remarried.
Great job.
Yeah.
On the other hand, though, like, even if they had tried to prepare her, who's to say she would have believed them?
I mean, still,
Sure.
at least
That's
say
true.
the words. At least say the words first.
Like, this is a very Winchester thing to do.
They don't think
They're
they're true
so bad at
sometimes.
communicating.
And I think, like, either way, she would have had a horrific time accepting this.
Yeah, it's still rough. Sam then tells Molly that she killed Jonah Greeley with her car, and she and Jonah both died. And ever since then, they've been haunting the highway on the night of February 22nd, 1992, which confirms that this is February 22nd, 2007. We then have a series of flashbacks to like what the like little like clues that either Molly didn't see or that like didn't make sense before we knew that Molly was the ghost. In 15 years, there have been 12 accidents on the anniversary. 5 of them were fatal. All witnesses reported Molly appearing and scaring them off the road. Not only was Jonah villainized in this entire episode, Molly killed him and herself and at least 5 other people.
Like, who's the villain, right?
Directly caused Jonah's wife to die by suicide. Jonah has killed no people.
Okay, I don't think Molly deserves to be villainized either.
I don't think so either, but I'm just saying Jonah did not deserve this. Molly's killed at least 7 people.
Unintentionally.
It was an accident,
Oopsies.
but still. Like, Jonah was made out to be an absolute monster.
He was, and he doesn't deserve that, but the proper response isn't to villainize Molly.
No.
Sam
and Dean then hit the library. They found Molly and Jonah's story and visited David, found out that Molly was cremated, so they knew she was being kept here by something other than her body. And whenever they almost hit her with their car, they immediately realized that she didn't know she was dead, and her unresolved conflict with David was keeping her here. A series of flashes of moments that we already saw as Molly realizes the implications of her being dead. The sun's starting to come up, and Molly forces them to admit that they didn't tell her because they need her for bait, which I'm glad she did. I'm glad she held them accountable for that.
Yeah.
Sam says that they brought her here to move on. She wants to go see David, and they tell her David already said his goodbyes 15 years ago. And Sam's like, what are you going to tell him? That you love him and that you're sorry? Like, he already knows that you loved him, and he already knows that you would be sorry. You're just going to, like, damage him. He's managed to build a new life for himself, and you're just going to ruin it if you go in there.
Ouch.
That is a very, very ouch, but also true.
Yeah, it's not wrong.
It's tough, but it's brutal and it's true.
Mm-hmm. Sam tells Molly it's time to go. She's suffered long enough. The sun is coming up over the horizon, and Molly walks towards the light and, like, dissolves into, like, white light, much like Father Gregory did a couple episodes ago.
Means House of the Rising Sun was a very appropriate song.
I love that song.
I really liked that song choice.
Jean admits that she wasn't so bad for a ghost, and they'll never really know where she goes until they themselves die. And Sam says it doesn't really matter because hope is kind of the whole point, that it's a better place.
Yeah.
True.
Which I thought was nice.
At some point in that exchange, though, Dean kind of blew off the emotions again, going, all right, Haley Joel.
I had another thought about House of the Rising Sun, though.
Okay.
Another reason I think it was, like, a good choice is because it's, I don't know, it starts off so mellow, and it's just not, like a very active song.
It's a very distinctive song riff. House of the Rising Sun was, like, such a great motif in this episode.
Yeah, the way it sounds really fits, like, the emotional themes of the episode.
Yeah, and it's just, like, very distinctive. Like, people recognize it when they hear the, like, opening guitar.
Yeah, like, it's distinctive, but also it's slow.
Yeah.
And this episode is, you know, about finding peace and just coming to terms with things. And I think, like, a slower song fits that better. This is what happens when I don't write notes.
Let's do some weekly segments and panels. Start with death count. This week we saw 2 deaths, bringing our on-screen total to 182. And then off-screen total for this episode was 7+. Some of those 5 accidents could have been multiple fatalities, but we can say for sure at least 5 people. And then on and off-screen total then for the show is 1,300+.
So you counted Mrs. Greeley?
Did I count Mrs. Greeley? That might be 8.
Yeah, it'd be 8, right?
That would be 8. I forgot about her.
Yeah, Mrs. Greeley. She's been through enough.
1,301 plus. Let me go correct
I mean, for
my
15
spreadsheet.
plus years, she's forgotten, so...
Yeah, I'm so sad that no one even, like, found her body or anything. Like, that's very, very sad.
She had every reason to become a ghost, and she didn't.
And she didn't. Like, a boss.
Good job.
I feel
Kudos.
I feel like one of the themes of this episode is also, like, respect for the dead.
Yeah. I was really glad that Sam, like, wanted to put her to rest. That was good.
Yeah. Like, we do that for
I guess
Mrs. Greeley, and we see, like, Mr. Greeley as, like, a person, even when he's actively being, like, a violent ghost.
Yeah.
And we also put all this effort into seeing Molly as a person and helping her move on.
Yeah.
So yeah, respect for the dead.
I would say that Mrs. Greeley wouldn't be hanging like that. I do feel the need to say that. The skeleton doesn't just, like, stay together when the tissue when the tissue decomposes.
It doesn't?
The tissue is what's holding the bones together.
Which means someone came in and, like, wired the bones
Articulated
together.
the bones, yeah.
It was just some weird, like, passing serial killer.
And then that's the person who put the chest back in front of the door.
Let's do MVP. So who would like to nominate as this week's most valuable person? And let's start with Meredith.
Oh, goodness. I'm gonna go with Sam.
Yeah, that's fair.
He burned the bones. He was very sympathetic to Molly. It was very nice of him.
Yeah. Audrey, how about you?
Probably Sam as well. Meredith had some good points. I hadn't really thought about it.
That's fair. Nick, how about you?
Yeah, this one's a tough one. I mean, like I said, it's not... I guess Sam, but...
Yeah, it's like Sam, I guess.
He knows how to throw a match without throwing the whole lighter in.
Yeah.
And he saved Dean, I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess because, like, the nature of the episode isn't really...
about the boys.
It's not really about winning.
I also said Sam for doing the emotional labor to prep Molly for the afterlife. I mean, I don't totally agree with how he went about it, but I get that was, like, a tough emotional thing to take on.
Yeah, I think all of us would have had a really difficult time with that.
Mostly, though, for wanting to put Mrs. Greeley to rest, also.
Yes.
And like what I was just saying about it, it's like somebody, you said somebody messed with their bones, but nobody ever decided to tell them about it?
Yeah,
or...
like, no one went looking for her. No one found her. Also, Sam dug 2 of the fastest graves, literally ever. He dug up Jonah Greeley so fast. Like, there's no way you could dig a grave that quickly.
He must have found some secret power armor or something.
It's not humanly possible.
Especially under a giant tree. Like, there's gonna be roots. Like, that's how trees grow.
It was just really loose dirt.
It's like, no, Sam, the power has been within you all along. You've always been weird. It's because you dig graves so fast. It's not because of all this other crap.
Been weird.
You just said no until now.
He hustled on that for sure. Next, let's put this episode to the Bechdel test. Did this episode have 2 named women? No, it didn't. Mrs. Greeley has no first name, and David's wife has no name at all.
So we really only know Molly.
So Molly, yeah, Molly is the only one. I mean, Molly's a first and a last name, which is great. It's Molly McNamara.
Also, like, we were dealing with a very small cast.
Yeah, this was a very closed episode.
But also, she was a really good character.
Yeah, Abigail and I talked about this on Saving People Querying Things, about the portrayal of Molly. She is a really great character, but she is very, very one-track minded about her husband. She only talks about David. She's constantly bringing him up, and I initially didn't feel great about that. But the amazing thing about talking to other people is that other people have different perspectives that they can add, and Abigail really added one for me here. They pointed out that a key element of ghosts is that there's one thing that they can't let go of, and Molly's is David. So she probably wasn't like this when she was alive. Like, this is a symptom of her being a ghost, and now that I look at it that way, I actually love that as a detail to her character.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking that before you said it.
Well, also, I mean, even if she was alive, it would make sense, because
yeah, it's like a stressful situation. She's worried about him.
Yeah, like, he could be dead. You know, she woke up in a car without him around after getting into an accident. She's being chased by a creepy guy in the middle of these dark, dark woods. Like, I would be thinking about my husband, too, because I would be worried about him.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that we could have given Mrs. Greeley a name at some point. Like,
probably, yeah.
I think we could have found that in the letter. better.
I think she deserves a name.
Yeah, this week's case of the week was, I guess, ghosts. I don't think anyone brought any notes on this. We've seen ghosts before, and we'll see them again.
I didn't bring any notes. I think they explained it very well in the episode.
Yeah, and I feel like we also did kind of like Haunted Highways already as well. Like we had Route 666.
Although I was listening to a podcast recently, and I did actually find some stories where ghosts make cold spots, so I guess that's a thing.
Yeah, that's kind of a common thing.
I didn't know that. I'm more of a mythology person, not really a ghost story person.
Let's do highlight and low light, and let's start with Audrey.
My highlight was definitely Sam insisting on putting Mrs. Greer